We have two presentations for this body and the audience tonight. One is on the Galloping Hill banquet food and beverage market analysis, and I want to ask Director Fiala to come up and introduce our guest and start walking through the presentation. Director Fiala?
My name is David Nistensen. I'm the president and founder of Meredith Advisors, a company I formed this February following my 12 years career with Economics Research Associates as a principal and partner of the firm. The golf clubhouse is outdated and needs to be replaced. My task was specifically to look at the food and beverage use within the clubhouse to determine, A, whether there was market potential, who the competitors were, what the underlying demographic and economic conditions were that would support that use, and to estimate what I think would be a reasonable amount of utilization and begin to frame the financial potential for that operation. Parkway, great visibility potential for the site, but most importantly, I think from a competitive standpoint in the marketplace that it provides a green backdrop for banquet operations, and it's really important to what I'll get to later in terms of the primary demand segment, which is weddings, and the ability to bring the outside into that experience is a premium in that market. When I looked at the market demographic and economic conditions, I think the market is very mature. There's not a lot of organic growth in terms of populations or household income growth, or income growth other than normal inflationary on income. There's a slowly shifting ethnic and racial makeup of the county, but pretty stable and generally. And the county performs in the middle of its neighbors. Not at the top of the regional economy, not at the bottom, but right in the middle, tracking alongside. When things go up, Union County goes up. When things go down, Union County goes down. And what that informed to me was that there's going to be nothing unusual to suggest that there's going to be a significant economic or demographic shift that's going to fundamentally alter that equation and how a facility would perform at the end of the day. Sometimes you'll get into a market where they're going to bring a new business in or something radical is going to change, but there's nothing like that going on here that I could see that's going to fundamentally alter the banquet business per se, other than normal economic cycles. I looked pretty intensively at the supply question in the marketplace. Who would likely compete with a banquet facility? I looked at freestanding banquet operators, private golf clubs, and searched long and hard for other daily fee or municipal golf clubs, but there are none. The freestanding banquet operators are the most likely competition, in my opinion, but they're older. Some need reinvestment. Some have weak reputations, but all of them lack that green setting, which I think would be a substantial competitive advantage for a banquet operation at Galloping Hill. The private clubs, they're constrained by IRS not-for-profit regulations that limits the amount of outside income they can generate. So they'll play on the periphery of the market, but by and large won't be the day-in, day-out competitors in the market. And from a positioning perspective, I think where you have a good opportunity is to be at the top of the lower-end local competitors or just slightly above them. And where does that put you in terms of event potential and pricing? I think there's about 185 events that you can host there annually. The mix might not be exactly right, but somewhere along these lines and these price points on average is where I think is a reasonable expectation for performance. My bias tends to be on the conservative side for this stuff, so it might be a little higher. But it's gonna take a little bit of time to get there. I think building a book of wedding business, it can take some time because people don't book them until they can see them and walk through them. So it's going to take 3 to 5 years to stabilize that business. I think once you get to stabilization, those events that I laid out there will generate about $2.5 million of revenue. If in fact, the actual development costs are $250 a square foot for the 15,633 square foot, that suggests a $3.9 million investment.
Kemper gets $1 million to build banquet facilities. Oh, boy. Two main points about putting in banquet facilities at Galloping Hill. There are a lot around. Like by there's the Kenilworth Inn, Galloping Hill Inn, Westwood. There are VFW halls. And I have a major client who's who's got one of the bigger banquet facilities. It's in Bergen County. But he constantly complains. He has to cut prices to get people in there, and he's very good at it. I mean, he knows the business, and he's having a tough time. I mean, I remember distinctly he said everybody's hurting, and the manor's about the only one that's not giving anybody a cut on fees. So getting into this thing is a really dog-eat-dog business, especially when you're starting off and nobody wants to. You need a track record, really, and you got to underprice, and there's so many halls in the area that they're underpricing. And the other point on that is that it's a golf course. If you're going to go into weddings, that's May, June, Saturdays, Sundays. You'll be playing golf there. I mean, parking is a major issue, and unless you close the golf course between May and July, the banquet, I mean, maybe you have some other ideas, but it just seems kind of stupid. Just quickly, John Burry, Kenilworth. Bruce Patterson asked me to read his. Oh no, just kidding.
I can assure you that I'm missing Mr. Patterson tonight.
I was going to mention him early on, but he's not here, so there's no point in mentioning him.
He must have something very important.
Exactly. You might be suspects in that. Let's see. Just back to the resolutions thing. The million. It's odd. $1 million is being spent on this Galloping Hill golf course, which is pretty much the $1 million that, according to a press release, you're not going to give to whatever your non-union people. They probably deserve it more than this. Personally, I don't think the banquet facility thing just seems like a stupid idea to me. I don't think. I think you're going up against a bunch of people who will eat you alive. It's a tough business, especially now when less people have money. And this $1 million, I just think it's going to go to, Kemper, and whenever there are projects, I always think that Dakotas Fitzpatrick is going to get like 10% of them, and that's why you're doing it and not paying it to. But that's my guess.
It's up to $1 million, Mr. Murray. Up to, not to exceed, but
right. Okay, and by the way, actually, from 2 years, I've sensed kind of improvement. I think you've done a very good job this year, actually, in running this thing and answering questions, and not that it was bad before. Maybe my presence has helped. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a contributing factor.
I guess so. I'm probably in there.
Tina Renner Cranford. I don't think we should be in the entertainment business. We're going to be running weddings now and conducting concerts, and this isn't something government is supposed to be involved in. That's what happens in socialist governments, not in a democracy. We have no business doing that. You should improve running the jail so people stop getting sick and dying. That's what you should be investing in. And also, when you give this $1 million to KemperSport, what happens is they become the contractor, so the public doesn't have access to their bills. All we see is that you give them $1 million, up to $1 million. We don't see the architects they hire, et cetera, and that's what happens with the Union County Arts Center. You give them this money to hire talent, and we don't see the process there. All we see is their bill, and I've opened this. It's a one-page, I think it has 4 lines on it. And it's just a bill for whatever, $600,000. That's all it says. We don't know who they used, what promotion people they're using. It could be family members. It could be political contributors. We don't know. But I don't see why you have to funnel this money through a third party when you have so many employees. And the fact that you do that and then there's no records, there's no paper trail of it. It's just highly suspicious, and somebody like me just has to wonder why you're doing that.